All right, so let's jump right into this. So this is the Malbim. He has a sort of intro to the Haggadah that's quite long. There's a lot of, let's see here, it is 12 pages long, so it's quite the intro. But it is amazing in terms of how it really sheds light on the Haggadah itself. So without further ado, let's just jump into it. He calls it the Maimer Yesod Musad. Like, this is really fundamental to really to understanding the Haggadah. And he says something else that's really, he seems to have another agenda.
Jeff, I'm sorry. One other thing. I don't know how to make the Haggadah big enough. Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
Oh, good. You can see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
I don't see you, but that's...
Oh, don't worry about that. As long as you can see the source sheet, you're good. Okay. So one other thing that he seems to be, so if we just look at his first line, he says, so first he's going to say that to him, and he's going to describe this, why this is later, but he wants to focus just on the parts from Avadim Hayinu to Ga'al Yisrael, because he says that that's really the quintessential part of the Haggadah itself, and he's going to talk a little bit about that later. But this is Mishpat Echad v'chuka achas lechachmas mishumios lechachmos halimudios v'chein lechachmas haTorah. And this is another point that he really wants to drive home. It feels like it's something that he really is important to him, is that we sometimes, I think, I'm going to put, extra words in his mouth maybe, but it could be that sometimes we get so focused on other types of wisdoms out there, wisdoms of the physical world, and sometimes we lose sight of the fact that to us as Torah Jews, Chachma is Chachma. It all sort of connects together. There is no, well, this is physical Chachma about the physical world, and this is Chachma about the Torah world. They have nothing to do with each other. No. He's really wants to say, no, that's not true. It's all one Chachma. So he starts out by saying, B'kulan Yachad, and we're going to skip around because we're going to skip a few paragraphs to really get into the meat of it. So he says, B'kulan Yachad Yediyas Seder. There's really one idea, one underlying, sort of concept to the Seder. Yediyas HaKava v'Hafrada, Yediyas HaNasuach v'Yachesh HaChalakim, Ish Ashchenu HaKarav Elav Melefanav Melecharav. He says, you have to put it all together. There's reason why things are put next to each other. Why is this one next to its neighbor in the Haggadah? He says, he reishes kol hayediyah v'shoresh kol hachachma. He says, if you take it apart and you just try to understand how and why the Seder was built the way it was, or the Haggadah was built the way it was, he said that is the source. That's going to be the root of chachma. So I'm going to skip a few paragraphs. I'm going to jump down to here. It says, chachmas ha Shios Kenach bechachmas halimudios Yediyas Seder he hamafteach liftoach she'arim neulim. So he says that just like any other intellectual type of chachma, and it's also true by the chachma of just understanding the physical world, that so too in those cases, understanding the Seder is going to open up locked doors for us. The Seder hu rosh Hamorim. The Seder is really the first. It's the maybe the primordial teacher here. Hu yavi levav chachma lahaskil lahavin token kavanas halekach v'halimud. Higam behigayon yesh harkava v'hafrada. There's things why things put together, why things taken apart. Gam belimudim. Sometimes also when you're learning other types of, any other type of limud, you're always trying to understand how things fit together and why certain things don't fit together, right? What is the connection between them? And when we dive deep and really try to investigate the words of our chachamim, and what they're providing us, Aleinu Lisbonim El Seder Divreham. We have to not only focus on the content, but how they order it, right? There's a lot to this, right? We talk about when we're learning the Rishonim, and anyone before the Rishonim, certainly the Gemara, the Mishnah, Psukim, every word, there's nothing extraneous, right? We have that idea that there's nothing extraneous. Or the words that they used were very, very thoughtful, methodical, So, Lachor Ledas Yechash Mamarehim Zelazeh, understanding how everything sort of fits together. What is the inherent connection between them? The sort of the genealogy, if you will, of these different concepts and words. Kasher kol echad el shalafanav el shalacharav. What comes before, what comes after it. V'zeh yiftach shar lavo el cheker ha'inin atzma. This is going to open up the gate to be able to really get into the heart of what is going on in the Haggadah. Haseder yegale ta'alumos chochma lahavin es alimut hahu bechol bechol seifav al yedei mitzias tam el haseder tigale v'tire kavanasa inin atzmo v'haya levayer. Right, and as we uncover this, and we'll be able to start to find the reasons for the seder, and that will then reveal to us the entire inyan. Like it all sort of will unfold in front of us, sort of like a like a nice plot line, and we'll be able to understand this. So, okay, I'm going to skip a few paragraphs because it's a lot of like he's really sort of hammering this idea home in different ways with a lot of verbiage, but clearly he wants to make this point that we can't just gloss over why this Haggadah was put together the way it was and sort of just pick out points where we feel like we want to pick out points. He said that really the chachma of this is in taking it apart and really understanding why it was put together the way it was.
Jeff, quick question.
Yeah.
The Haggadah as we know it was codified when?
Good question. So there's a lot of, I think, discussion around that. We're going to see in this that the Malbim says that it was put together by the Chachamim of the Mishnaic period, during the Mishnaic period. The Tanoim is
exactly as it stands now. I mean, certainly the content is Tanoim.
There certainly were pieces that were added in later, and that's actually why he wants to start from Avadim Hayinu and go through Gaal Yisrael, because he's going to talk about the fact that some of it. I mean, Halach Ma'anya was clearly was clearly put in during Babylonian times much later. So yeah, there's no question. I think Dayenu is another one that probably comes into the Haggadah at a later date. But when you look at just the Ikar, the components, the fundamental components of the Haggadah, yeah, he's and it makes sense because. Like who's speaking? It's all Tanoim who were
Tanoim for sure. Yeah.
Right. So it sort of makes sense that it was, it couldn't have been during the times of the Anshin Knesset Agadola who had put together most of our davening, right? Yeah. This was probably several generations.
But it could have been later, especially since some of the stories of the Tanoim are
exactly. Since it's all about the Tanoim. Exactly. Those are the main characters are all Tanoim. So yeah. And so it sort of makes sense. I haven't seen this, I haven't run into it yet, the Malbim, but I've heard that the Malbim will say at some point that it was actually Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi who put her together, which again, sort of fits the mold, right? It sort of fits with everything else. So, okay. So, it's called Zeh, Ra'isi v'nasati alibi la'amik u'lizbanim levakesh v'limso pitoron lechidas seder Haggadah. He said, I wanted to really delve into this and figure this out, understand the riddle that is the Seder Haggadah. Ubarach hachonin la'adam das, blessed is the one who provides chachma to man, right from the a lot of paraphrasing of different ideas from davening and from that he uses, right, that psukim, very beautiful language. Yichaneni lahargish b'Seder Haggadah davar nifla. Lo sharua gedolim chekri lev zulasi asher ktanim ava mamtani ulam zechilik adam mekel v'nishmas shaket tvinehu. So this is clearly, this is sort of what he's the picture that he's painting is that the Seder Haggadah is something that is an incredible piece of chachma that is certainly, sort of divine, at least in its inspiration. V'lo seder levado yatsa bechesed el bahir b'shchokim al pi hatam shematzosi ki al yedo. Sorry, I'm going to just. Just want to see where we don't have a lot of time, and I just want to get into. So, I'm just going to skip that paragraph. We'll jump down to. Okay, so the v'hine terem enes chalke yatzir rishona es akushios v'saragashos. He says before we really dive into the answers, I'm going to give you. He says I'm going to give you the codex to really, be able to break the code. But before we do that, in his typical nature of how he understands and how he learns and writes, his perush on Tanakh, he says I'm going to first ask questions, right? I'm going to ask my questions, and I'm going to give you my feelings, my like what's bothering me, and then we'll get into the answers, right? Whether we're talking about why it was ordered the way it was, whether it's actually within the body of the mimer, of the content itself. He's boner knows kushas moelis lishbot achrei kain es harayon mechudash haya bo mamash im ayin. Right. Understanding the questions will give us clarity, right? The questions are what give us clarity. Im al pi apitaron tigbahena kol hashelos of tis bakshena velo timsaena zeha os ki kol hakosev el hamatara hein hineha edim asher evesi lifne beisdin hakahal kibandu na edosam vihitzigo v'shar mishpat. So again, it's just it's just this beautiful language, but it's again just sort of painting the same picture that this is really this is really the object of what we're trying to accomplish here is to understand the seder in its fullness, and this is the method that we should use. Let's see. So he says, "Rishis makom ha'iyun." Who rak min avadim hayinu. So this is getting to your question. He says really the place that we should start to really focus in on is avadim hayinu. Ki apsicha hayosa rishona kahalachmaanya ina overes tachas shevet abakoras azos ve'in makom lisha madotis naseh lechol larosh. Again, it's this beautiful language borrowed from different places like by Korach, but he says don't think that somehow Halachma Anya was able to get itself in before Avadim Hayinu because it deserved it or because there's some. No, it's just that there's a reason for it. There's a separate reason, a very technical reason why it needs to come there, but it's not. It's not in there beforehand because of precedent or any anything more than just a very technical reason. So it has to come early because this is where we're talking about. Come in, right, and join us. Okay, so that's why we're going to start from Avadim Hayinu, and then Vastamos She'elas Tam Mazos Matam Shoseder as a Davka Veshelas Pretios Asher Otzi B'Mispar Tzvan. And this is, he says also that the questions that come up in the four sons, that's going to be, we'll get to all of those as well. We'll try to understand those, how those questions, what those questions are, how they're answered. But he says, but first let's get into his questions. So he says he writes them out. Aleph. The seder has mani mamishpat lahatim maimer mitchilas ovdei avorazar lamaimer avodim hayinu. Right? If you are going to go according to the chronological order, you wouldn't start with avodim hayinu. You would start with mitchila ovdei avorazara.
Yes.
Right? Yep. Question number one. Okay. Midaber mizman terach avi Avraham. Dekorim harbe liyaridas Mitzrayim. Obviously, that's much, much, much before we went down to Mitzrayim. Kamasir haya ola yafe harbe. Okay, I'm gonna he elaborates on the question more, but we understand. There's a question about why are we starting from Avadim Hayinu, and then only afterwards do we get into Mitchila Ovdei Avodah Zara. So that's question number one. Question number two. My time Adidan Avdin and Baha Kishmuel Lahaskam Avadim Hayinu Velo Kirav. Halabar Medina Kaimal Adalacha Kirav Neged Shmuel. Okay, so now there's a technical question that we seem to be holding like Shmuel, who says that we should begin with Avadim Hayinu and not like Rav. We know that halachically, in the face of Rav, we don't paskin like Shmuel. We would paskin like Rav. So that's a question. That's question number two. Again, it's more of a technical question as well. But still, obviously, these are questions about, again, understanding why was this put together the way it was. Because certainly halachically, it seems like it wouldn't have fit that way. Okay. Question three. Lonius Parsha Mefurash Daita de Rav de Svirle Damaska Beginus Betchila Ovdei Avodah Zara Im Ledidan Medalgin Al Koab Psakos. This is sort of a continuation of question number two of why is it this in this order again, according to Shmuel, that we would be beginning with that we are Maschel Beginus, and we should start with Ovdei Avodah Zara. So again, I'm just going to sort of add this in as a continuation of the last question, so just so that we can get through more of these questions. So Haschalas HaMaimer Min Avadim Hayinu. This is question number four. The beginning of the Maimer of Avadim Hayinu Ad Va'afilu Kulanu Chachamim Miyusar Lagamra. He says, why do we even have? Let's ask a more fundamental question. Why even have Avadim Hayinu all the way through? And even if. Right, we were all chachamim, kulanu navonim, etc. Ki asipur avadim hayinu v'chuli haba kan biktsara. This is the whole thing of avadim hayinu is so brief, right? It's been cut so short. Haluhu mefurat biyosef beprate pratos lahalam beparsha bikurim vayir mitzrayim. We're going to get into much more of the details when we go into. The whole word from Bikurim, where we say that, right, that we are coming from Lavan, right, that Arami Oved, etc. So why are we? That's where we get into the details. We're not even getting into the details here. So what's going on? And you continue. V'yanunu, v'ditzak, v'yotziyanu. That's where we get into the details of Yetzias Mitzrayim, not here. Hello, Masha Niskar Kan Beremez Avadim Hayinu V'yotzin Misuper Sham Be'arichos B'yeses Es Umalo Hocha. So what's going on here? Ma Yitenu Ma Yosef Asibur HaKotzer Kan. Okay. Again, I think we'll probably just cut this question short, but we understand the question. Like, what is this piece even doing? Forget about the order. Now we're asking about the content of it. Okay. Yeah. 5. Mahatamat Sivui Dafilu Kulanu Chachamim Kulan Nevanu. What is this all about? Why are we even asking this question of we know it's a mitzvah. We don't have any other mitzvah that says, well, if you're a Talmud Chacham, you don't have to do this mitzvah. Everybody else, the mitzvahs apply to everybody. I mean, you could say, okay, the mitzvahs don't always apply. There's mitzvahs apply to the Kohanim, there's mitzvahs that apply to a king, there's mitzvahs that apply to, okay, understand that. But we don't have anything about Chachamim are considered in a different state and don't have to do certain mitzvahs because they're Chachamim. I mean, the opposite is true, right? I mean, we see by Purim, Chachamim have to come and hear the Megillah or Megillah Esther. So what is this adding that we didn't know already? Okay, that's question number 5. My vafilu bevav hachibur, and why is it? And also, and even if vafilu kulanu chachabim, and even if, what is it? What's the vav doing? How is that connecting back to avadim hayinu? Again, it seems it's a hemshech, it's a continuation, but what does that mean? That's again more of a technical question, but still, how does this all connect together? 7th question, and he's got 14 of them. So we're not going to get through all of them, but you can sort of see he's really taking this apart. And next week we're going to get into the answers, but we'll just look at one more. Kavari is Oru Rabim, the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah ben Zomad, Mazkir Yitzias Mitzrayim b'cho Halelush b'cho Hashana v'nifka v'halacha kamosam. My nafka mina meleo Pesach l'shal kol Hashana kula. This whole thing that we say. Of this, where we bring in the the machlokas, or it's a Mishnah in Brachos of Rav Elazar ben Azariah versus Ben Zoma, Koyim Echayecha, that whole drash. But that's for every day. Every day we have to be Mazkir Yitzias Mitzrayim. We have a mitzvah to do that. That's why we have the third paragraph of Shema. That's why we say the third paragraph of Shema even at nighttime, because it's Mazkir Yitzias Mitzrayim. That has nothing to do with Leil Pesach. That's every day of the year. What is it doing here? Right? What is that adding to our seder? Okay. I think we have to stop here just because we're out of time. But next week, in Yirtzeh Hashem, we're going to start to answer these questions and really get to the heart of, what it is. And I'm just not to leave you on a cliffhanger. What it all comes down to is the codex, the code to sort of, what's the hidden code here? What's the key to this code? It's in the one pasuk, v'higara de levincha. He's going to use that pasuk.
Exactly.
And he's going to say, if you look at that pasuk all the way through and darshan it out, the seder, the Haggadah is right there. It's amazing. It's just so beautiful. But he says that's what the Baal Haggadah was doing. He was following the precedent. He's following the code of Haggadah de Levincha, and that's how the Haggadah was put together in that seder. So it's gorgeous. We'll have to see it next week in Yirtzeh Hashem. All right.